This way, 18%. Lucky video.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody. Today is February 9th. This is a meeting of the Westchester Borough Planning Commission. It's a voting session, a voting meeting. It is 6:31. Today we have Quentin Burrell, Steve Mitten, Thomas Doherty, Sheila Vaccaro, Matt Clapp. I'm Jim Cherry. Are there any announcements from everybody? Okay. Any citizens' comments on items not on the agenda? Okay. Very good. Okay, approval of minutes. This is for the January transition. I was not present.
I'll move to approve my minutes.
Second.
I was also.
Great.
I was.
Very good. Thank you. Minutes are approved. Okay, all business. We have the Planning Commission's annual report that was prepared by Matt Clapp. If everybody's had a final chance to review it or any additional comments.
I didn't receive any additional comments. I will note, based on our last meeting, first of all, I removed draft
Okay.
from the background. I also updated the section on side yards to reflect the ordinance amendment that we did recommend and was approved for the dimensional requirements in the town center, and then that will take on side yards in the NC districts going forward in the future.
Okay.
So that there was just I didn't acknowledge the dimensional ordinance amendment for the dimensional requirements in the original text. So just updated that. So that's on the last change.
Other sound. Okay, Alan. How you doing? Very well, thanks.
Apologize.
No worries. We're just about to make a motion on the, I don't want to give you minutes.
What?
I'll give you minutes to settle in.
I haven't seen Alan's comments on it. Like one comment. So. And I just think so we should.
Okay, so I'm going to move that we approve the Planning Commission annual report as written, and that you accept that to be submitted to Borough Council for record.
Second.
Any comments from citizens? Steve?
I just want to reiterate from last meeting, we talked about it for the link, but it's not that. It's trying to work there.
Yeah. You make it look good. Very good. It's just nice to have. It's a great.
Yeah, it was valuable for me to recap the year.
Yes. Do you have an announcement? The PC's procedures revised February 12th, 2026. Matt Clark submitted that.
Yeah, just two notes on that as well. I'm updating the revision date to reflect tonight's meeting because we'll vote on it.
Okay.
So February 9th. And then I added the web address for the agenda meeting center on the borough's website. And if you want to pull it up just to show it so we can all see it, it's under 4A9 on the new procedure. So it should be that 5B then. So you go down to 4 and then A9, so at the bottom there. So just so that way it's memorialized. Happens to change, we can revise.
All right, the agenda, meeting materials, and minutes for each meeting shall be posted on the borough's public meeting portal in the agenda meeting management center at the following web address: Okay, so good.
So now it's on record, people can find it.
Very nice. Okay.
Those were the only changes from last time.
Any conversation or comments on that? I'm going to move that we approve for publication the planning commission procedures.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Cooking. Okay. Very good. So, before we talk about the next three issues, just wanted to reiterate again, we have the, purpose of the comprehensive plan, and Tom Authority, I asked him if he would be willing to, provide a presentation tonight on that, because I think when I read through that thing, I think it's a great amount of work and good work, and I think it puts you in the mindset of thinking about a plan. I think it kind of frames it and puts into perspective really nicely, kind of comprehensive plan and some of the goals we're trying to achieve here. The other two items there, I think I talked to Alan earlier this week. It's really about the PC, the unfinished business over the last couple of years, kind of trailing that, what we call parking lot issues. But there are a bunch of items that we just don't want to let fall through the crack, and we want to make sure that they're resolved. We also had some review of the Saudo and zoning ordinances just to point out some of those items that have happened over the last couple of years that have been brought up in discussions that may want to be revisited to kind of strengthen up those ordinances, or at least maybe reorient them to where we're sitting here in 2026. So I'm going to start with Thomas, if you want to let me pull that up.
Would it be possible, I actually have just very quick follow-up from the conversation last week on Market Street. Sure. So I just did a little bit of digging and just have PDF for everybody. So it's just follow up on that name conversation. The first page here is the PennDOT, owned roads, streets in town. And so we were talking about Market Street, and we were talking about that wide width and the history behind that. And obviously, PennDOT owned roads or streets are harder for us to control or improve those. So on that second page, I just pulled up. So I was thinking about some of our conversations. So I'll just be very brief with this. But I was thinking about some of the possibilities, right? That are on the table, to improve our streets. And I live on High Street, and so I'm at the corner of High and Middle. And so I started this second page. I say High Street is posted at 25 miles per hour, yet traffic routinely exceeds that speed, resulting in major crashes in a few weeks during the spring and summer months. It gets warm out and we get crashes instantly. And I think it's similar to the intersection of Washington as well. So I would argue this pattern indicates a design failure, not an enforcement issue. And you see at the bottom right there, this is SEPTA's plan to improve South High Street, right at the intersection of Minor. It's clear that this is the proper improvement for High Street in our town. And I appreciate the fact that PennDOT, I'm assuming PennDOT was PennDOT that funded or led that movement for South High. But it takes a very long time when PennDOT owns those streets. So it's just their design detail on the bottom right and kind of a blown up version there to just show, hey, this is what these curb extensions can do, right? We have on-street parking up and down High on so many of our streets, and a little bump out like this, we've seen it implemented on Market, you've seen it on South High, and I'm sure it's very expensive. I'm sure that there are lots of steps to doing it, but it's something that I think would definitely improve, obviously, the safety like I said, we have multiple crashes. I would say every couple weeks, there's a big crash outside. And so, the argument on height is just the one that I know the best, right? We have that 7.5 feet of parking lane, 10 foot of drive, 10 foot of drive, 7.5 of parking lane. That's the street section in front of high. Juxtapose that to Market, why do I included, when I gun it down Market Street, we're dealing with street widths of 12 feet or 12.5 feet. So these are the same street widths or drive lane widths as the turnpike. High Street's different, right? We naturally go a little bit slower, to go tighter, safer for pedestrians, so comfort, right? It's an inverse relationship. That's comfortable for cars, more comfortable for pedestrians. And if we had the bump out on North High, in this case, you would be cutting down the distance that pedestrians have to walk by 15 feet, right? The bump out would stretch out that 7.5 feet of both directions. That third page, and I will admit that this was I want to say I put time and energy into this page, but it was back and forth with ChatGPT helping me do some of this research. But I did want to be realistic, and so this is just for you to read on your own if you so choose. But what is taking back the road from PennDOT mean? Where are the dollars? What are the dollars that we're giving up? What are the dollars that we potentially have access to via grants and just I guess according to my limited research, we do get some state dollars, but it really is not going to offset the cost, right? The burden of taking on that infrastructure. And so, in conclusion, taking back a road is not financially neutral. It's a values decision, it's not a budget decision. And then, kind of to Alan's point, so I just kind of snuck this one in there at the end. I had said I was going to bring back an actionable item on alleys. I started to do that, and that was beyond the scope of what I could do this week. It's a very big
Appreciate it.
topic. And so that third page there is I don't propose, it's not on agenda, it's not anything for tonight, but I want to start kind of stockpiling these small things that then we can visit in kind of an way. And so the final fourth side is that maximum building coverage, which we discussed last week, where there's a residence, and I didn't put that actual address in there, but if you figure out, you can look at, find that address, but it's on North Church, and this has the project description and the issue that they ran into on this page. And my proposal is that we take maximum building coverage removed from the NC1 and NC2 districts. So my argument, impervious lot coverage already serves the intended purpose of preserving pervious surfaces, green space, and tree canopy. In that context, maximum building coverage becomes an unnecessary burden on homeowners and should be eliminated. So we'll just kind of file that one away, and it's that kind of actionable item, I think, Alan, that you were
I think we're gonna
asking for.
we'll get back to those things. I think there's a couple things quickly. If you can get this into a PDF format, at least the front end of it relative to the curb extension. I'd like to send that to Jerry from Smart Road.
Perfect.
And then because I think the idea, because it ties in nicely with actually the site triangles.
That's right.
Having and keeping those cars away from the corner a little bit serves multiple purposes. But I think that's worth having that conversation, and especially on High and Biddle, High in Washington, and our High incidents. I'm sure police, Westchester Borough Police have on record the higher incidents intersections.
And I'm aware of that. I would imagine it's throughout the borough.
Sure.
I remember when I was working on Minor Street, they said, hey, this is the worst intersection in town. And routinely I'd be working there and really you hear that crash. You're right.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's fair. We can send that to people.
Will do.
Can I just add one thing about the taking back the roads? One of the reasons we were able to take back these was the benches. So I love to take them all back, but
Sure.
there is they don't want to give them up.
Yeah.
Is part of that. So
Yeah.
that's all.
I saw that Chestnut was on there. I wonder if that was, I didn't know that history,
Wow.
but yeah.
By the way, that was a good trade.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I love it.
I didn't, until I'd done it took me a little bit of digging, but until I had done it, I didn't know
Yeah.
what was PennDOT's and what was ours. So I just wanted to follow up on yet last week with that map.
But the only thing that I think is that that plan was in place decades ago. That's why Chestnut,
South High or taking that gay.
taking that gay
Yeah.
and then having Market and Chestnut be, and that's why the streets ran the same way.
Yeah.
That was the point, to
Right.
close gay permanently and have just Chestnut and Market.
Yeah.
So that's an older plan than any of us.
Yeah.
And when they put the bricks down and you work, that was.
Hmm. Yeah,
That was
that's good.
That was the other intersection that was discussed at, Borough Council, which was, just west of St. Agnes, the block on new, road, 322, what was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and just that whole intersection, is this, yeah.
Yeah.
That's another intersection of traffic by pushing cars.
Well, and actually the bump outs, you know, the on-street park outs and stops for the sightline. And so I think the improvement with sightline with the bump outs is that the pedestrian is just literally further into the street because the actual sight, it's what's included, the sightline doesn't change. It's that the pedestrian is able to get that 7.5 or 8 feet further into that sightline. Yeah. I mean, obviously, but that intersection should have some stop signs too.
Very good.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Those poor pedestrians.
The report gets wider and wider.
Well, Jim, thanks. Jim asked me to run through this. I did provide this as a PDF, so I'm going to try to be really brief here. This is something that was on the website, last week. Can you make it the zoom out so that just so you can see the whole page?
That's page width. You want me to let us see?
I just know that, yeah.
Oh, too much.
There we go. Perfect.
Found it.
Yeah, so this was something that as we were looking at the zoning update of 2020, which actually ended up being 2021, we were going back to, we kind of, I definitely joined at the tail end of that, and we were trying to figure out what was the RFP for that zoning update, and there actually hadn't been one. So then what was the, or RFP, actually it was RFP, what was the RFP description of work to be done? It was really, we ended up just kind of streamlining the zoning. That was, so there wasn't any big, there wasn't a whole lot of substantial change to the zoning code. And that's kind of the parking lot emerged from that as we discussed and said, hey, all of these changes, save this for another day. This has already taken, 2 years, 2.5 years, or whatever. It's 2021, not 2020. And we were looking at that comp plan to try to inform, hey, so I'm going to quote, I've said I'm going to be brief. Well, the plan itself, so I'm sorry, that first bit. This is from the intro to the comp plan. It says, well, the comp plan itself is not a regulation. It should be used to inform future laws such as zoning. And that was really going back to the comp plan. That's, next. And so these were all different pieces that we as the planning commission were talking about. So this is, elements of that parking lot. And you can see I've actually crossed out to them because not that we've addressed streets and alleys, we talked about that a lot last month, but in particular, the aspects of the alley that we were kind of in conflict with our building zoning officer at the time, we were able to pull that out of that 2021 zoning update. And then ADUs, obviously, we were able to get an ordinance passed, and that's actually it's a garage ADU as part of that Church Street application that's dealing with that maximum. So this is just a list of things that is in this PDF. And street treat, I like to think like if there was a theme to the comp plan, well, maybe it's attainable housing, but the second theme would be my favorite topic, which is street trees. And over and over, both talk about street trees, landscaping, the borough canopy. And so this is, a quote from that. It says, Westchester should take steps to inventory the borough's heritage, assessing trees, protect the existing trees, restore the tree canopy that's been lost, and the borough arborists and street tree commission, I'm sure, with the other group. Have been working toward that, which is great. But as we can all see, they're underfunded. They feel probably undervalued. I mean, when the street tree commissions come in, they've said we don't feel like the efforts that we're making are having it. And so I just have a couple quotes in here. You know, street trees are so important for urban places. They bring down the temperature along streets. Some big quotes in here from the Department of Agriculture. Absorbing, you know, we're always concerned about pervious surface, but if we don't include mature tree canopies, we're losing out on so much of that value. The roots of trees absorb another. So this is just a quote through there. I'll just read the bold part again. Street tree canopies on average absorb half an inch of water per rainfall. So the difference between that bare chunk of dirt and that chunk of dirt with a tree is hugely different. And so we need to be thinking proactively about how to add to our street tree canopies. Street trees raise the value of residential property. So this is a study by the Wharton School of Business. It's self-evident, I just put in there, but it makes people want to be in that place more. Okay, next. And so when we first brought this up, one of the pushbacks was, hey, we already have this. We have this rebate program so that when you're paying your, what is it, the runoff, there's a fee. Stormwater fee, right? And so you can apply for trees to offset that. But when we dug into that, I think it was a one-time offset, and it was also so minimal. And we thought, now we're dealing with dollars and cents. I think Planning Commission has a certain number of levers that can be pulled. One of the key levers is pervious and impervious. And the intent is we want to absorb this too. Well, that will be one side of that, and you know, obviously the tree canopy and everything else. And so really, this doesn't seem like that much of an incentive to get the kind of street trees we're looking for. But for a project, if you want to get maybe a little bit more pervious coverage, and on our side, what we would want, or what the borough would want, is infrastructure for street trees. There's a trade there that could be really valuable for the borough residents and the borough as a whole. So we really wanted to explore that with the tree commission. How do we incentivize lowering some impervious, I'm sorry, I guess growing the impervious coverage in exchange for the infrastructure needed to really build out our street tree proposal. So that was the end of that little section. This was another thing that we talked about a little bit at length. Inside of the comp plan, they talk about how do we improve the pedestrian ways in the town center. And so, you know, here's just a couple of quotes from the comprehensive plan. The second one, they say, conduct a feasibility study for converting Gay Street to a pedestrian mall, to your point, from Walnut Street to New Street, and that's 2018. Presumably, you're saying they're talking about it back in the 80s.
Yeah.
Right. So it's still in the 2018, you know, or 2016, I'm sorry, comp plan. But they also say consider improving Prescott Alley to more safely accommodate pedestrians. And I think we have this great, our alleys are so wonderful. And there's Prescott there on the left, but you also have Courthouse Alley on the right. And just a little fun tidbit from, I think, Tom Comita, who says the Courthouse Alley was the original Great Road from Philadelphia to the Brandywine. And he says that curve that you see on that right-hand side, when you see that the building kind of curving to the alley curves to that, he argues that that's the remnants of the Great, it was called, I guess, the Great Road, you know, coming out of Philadelphia. And I think that there's so much potential there, and I can imagine, you know, ways in which we could try to follow through with that plan vision by maybe talking to John O'Brien and saying, you know, what are the limitations to cleaning up and improving these alleys and kind of allowing them to contribute a little bit more to the pedestrian ways. And so you just see those in scale there, right? You know, and now the recent development by Eli has actually made that Courthouse Alley is now basically just a one block, right? Because it doesn't turn anymore as clear, or can you still get around? Actually, I'm not sure. Can you does Courthouse Alley still make that right hand turn next to La Scala?
Right here?
Yeah,
Yes.
it does. Oh, okay.
Because I think the garage is just bicycle. No, we don't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's,
yeah, that should be shown, but.
because you can kind of cut through.
Got it. Okay, but whatever, that's in the comp plan. I think it's a really neat thing to look at and it ties into our history. Let's just skip through these next things, but it really is just looking at other examples there. This is the other theme of the comp plan, I would argue, and it's in the land use and housing section, and it's attainable housing. We talked about that at length, but I really just want to look at these couple slides together if I can with you. It says so this is a quote from the comp plan, the primary goals of the land use and housing plan, that section of the comp plan, are to ensure that new development contributes to the small town character of the borough and provide for a range of housing types to support different types of household range and levels. New development should follow traditional Great Street and alley pattern. And I think that's one thing that we've really harped on, is that we shouldn't have to choose one or the other. It shouldn't be either buildings that are attainable and are detrimental to the character of the borough. We should be able to build, at least set the stage for, I mean, that's all we can do with planning commission, but for buildings that both contribute right to the character of the borough and also set the stage for attainability. And so I want to look at the densities down here, right here, and kind of the histories of them. And it's hard to see, but that's Minor Street and New Street kind of in the center of this one on the left. So really, we're looking at that really early history from maybe about, like late 1800, maybe 1900. I'm not exactly sure where I pulled those dates from. I think I probably had something that was pulling this from. And then the 1900 to 1930s, and now we're down at, Price and Sharpless. And so you can see it's less dense, but it's a similar grid pattern. And then you get to 1945 and onward, and it's interesting to look at the relationship of that time period in the zoning codes. You get what you zone for, right? And so if you look at the history of the building and land use codes in Westchester, we adopted the same codes of West Whiteland and everybody else at the time. And so this is, you got what you zone for. This was intentional, it wasn't accidental that we got that 1945 onward development up there, but it's definitely no longer what our comp plan and we as a borough are looking. We're really aiming more for these left-hand side ones. And I brought that up, I hope I have the fonts in and I pulled that out, but do you mind just real quick going down to slide 24? Sorry. I'll tell you when you get there. Okay, right there. And the part of the point I wanted to make with that, I think I'll just pull that out, is that on the left, we've got 40 lots, and then we have 18 lots, and then we have 12 lots. So when we're talking about attainability, we're one of the few levers that a planning commission can pull that has to do with the lot size and that back. And so when we look at, what's the resource that we as the borough have, we have plan. And if we're looking for more attainability, I think one of the ways that we can do that is start to allow some of these smaller, more traditional townhouse lots that we can see in some of the older areas of town that, currently we can't, our zoning doesn't allow that right now. Actually, it does the new unified neighborhood. Yeah. Right, yeah, but it's still that step that, yeah, that's great. I'm sorry, so can you go back up? Sure. So one of the, and yeah, so just on that attainability, next slide. On the attainability thing, we have these couple neat cottage courts. So it's just a build. We have all the precedent I think that we need for our boroughs right now. We've got such a rich borough, as far as the precedent buildings architecture. And one of the things that we see in a couple of places are kind of creative ways of developing our lot. Yeah, we can keep going down. So when we're thinking about attainability, and just scroll some super, in this section here, my question is, where's the attainable housing? And if you have to walk from, where the one arrow is on the upper left, and you walk all the way down, the townhouses are more attainable than the big lots, right? And when we developed in this other pattern, there was really a desire to kind of separate out the attainability, which you see with our NC 1, 2, and 3 zoning as well, is that we're separating by use, which includes attainability. So the attainable housing, is there on the bottom right. And it actually, even though there's only a little fence separating them, if you wanted to walk from one to the other, it's a 0.8-mile walk. Next. And similar story here, right? Where's the attainable housing? And it kind of jumps off the page at you, right? It's the apartment buildings, and that's part of the NC3, right? That apartment buildings are allowed in the NC3, and there it is, kind of in its own little area. You can see that image on the bottom right, right? This is not really part of the borough fabric at all, and our current saldo and our current comp plan is pushing for development that does not look like the bottom right, the attainable housing. So what does attainable housing look like if it's contributing to the character of the borough? And I would say a lot of different things, but this cottage court is just one version of it. So if the question here is, where's the non-conforming, right, the kind of attainable housing we're not allowed to build today, where's the non-conforming attainable housing in the NC2 district here in the plan? And it's kind of hard to see, right? Like, where of those black buildings, if all the black is the buildings, which one of those lots? The other two jumped off the page, right? Like, where's the more attainable housing here? And you see it on that bottom, well, the bottom left hand is the street view. And even there, where is it? And on the bottom right, you see it. And I say attainable because it's more dwelling units per area borough. And so you see that if you go to the next page, you kind of highlight it there. So it's West Bernard Street, and you can see into it this lovely little courtyard, and I think you have 7, 8 maybe units around that courtyard. Keep going, and so just a little bit about it. You can see the aerial of that development right there. Next page. And so the same question here, where's that non-conforming? So when I say non-conforming, basically, like, right, you couldn't build this today. Like, our zoning doesn't allow for this kind of development today. But there's a really beautiful aspect in that, like, it's neighbors, and I used to live there, so that was part of the where, we would back up onto the really big lot, right? Like, we had all of those houses, all those little townhouses on our lot, and then the next lot down was just as big as ours, and it had one house. And so you're bumping shoulders and neighbors. So it really just kind of mixed in the attainability, I think, in a beautiful way, and it's part of the history of our town. And so I was really grateful to be able to live up there on Marshall Street in an affordable townhouse. And there were definitely some hardships, right? We didn't have our own washer dryer at our unit. We didn't have any parking, but we were really grateful to be able to live there.
Do you know when they were built?
I don't. I want to say it was the early 70s. These ones right here. Okay, so then my proposal is simply, I think that the Unified Neighborhood District is a great step in the same exact direction of attainable housing that also has the potential to contribute to the character of the borough. And I think that's on us to really try to make sure that we have those guardrails in place so that the housing that does get built, like the Unified Neighborhood District have to comply with our historic regulations. And so I think that this is another development type that, unlike the big apartment complexes or the other kind of 1945 zoning that's super segregated, this is intermixed into the neighborhoods in a really wonderful way. So that was that proposal. I'm gonna flip through this, but just to say there was a whole parking guide that was referenced, and I think that's something that we intend to continue to talk about with the parking lot, talk about parking guide. And so here, if you could just pause here, zoning legislation and perhaps parking requirements more than any other shape that can change the borough. And so I've just kind of highlighted the areas. This is the 19, here I say 65 to 2020. I think I say 65 because that was when that second set of zoning was adopted, really right before that. And so you just see the difference in the borough of, what you zone for, what's shaping these different areas. And it's largely the zoning code and the parking regulations that go with that zoning code that really dictate development. Developers are just following, almost like they're just taking the path of least resistance. And with our current, across the country, I think we do better than so many other places. But generally, you get what you zone for. So what's built in West Violence can be built here. It's built, the same as, Oklahoma City, the same anywhere that I'm working in Atlanta. It's all just about the same, and all the rules and regulations are pretty much the same. Here's a great quote from Donald Shoup, if I can. Rather than parking working in the service of cities, cities have been working in the service of parking almost entirely to their detriment. And parking is one of those things that we have to do well. We definitely can't just throw that to the wind. I think other municipalities have done some of that, and I think that that's going to come back to bite them. But we just have to be nimble, and it has to be a living document. So as different means of transportation, different demographics, as that changes, we can just be up to date with that and try to be strike that balance as best we can. And this is just an example of, on the bottom left, right, these are the images that we have in the comp plan. These are the areas that we, an image from the kind of stuff that we aspire to. And then on the right, this is what our current zoning code really requires, is all this off-street parking. So here we have, I have the use, right? So we have a use-based zoning code, obviously. And the use here is restaurants, cafeterias, taverns, or cafes. And this is the amended, updated 2001. So here we pulled out fast food restaurant, because that's what we're looking at there. And it says 1 for every 250 square feet of gross floor area in the TC district, 1 for every 500 square feet of floor area in the TC district, within the, whatever the ROD was for that. And in any other district. So it's giving, the different parking numbers per square feet. And that the developer that was doing that, they might have had a little bit of extra, but that's probably I would guess that if not almost every single space you see there is required on its own. And so the reason that our town center doesn't have that is because there's a little asterisk at the end that basically says, hey, if you're in the town center, you don't follow. So we actually still, all the uses in the town center on our zoning code have a parking requirement. But then if you're in the TC, you don't actually have to follow the parking requirement. So technically any restaurant in town has a parking requirement, which would be far greater than, here's the size of the building. The parking requirement would be, 5 times the size of the building. And we're grateful for the fact that we don't require the town center has to be addressed. And this was a slide to help highlight that. And it's just something we want to continue to look at. It was a great diagram there. Basically the pre-World War II, the pre-World War II there on the left, and then you get the 1950s and 60s zoning applied to it. And you see where all the parking, that's the amount of parking really that's required for that amount of building about. And then you get that applied to cities, and then you have Downingtown, which unfortunately Downingtown bulldozed half of their main street to provide parking because they never lifted that. So just so grateful for the leadership that we had in our borough in the 80s that was basically saying, actually, before we bulldoze our downtown, let's not have a parking requirement applied. And where to look at this, and it says we think that we can't fit in parking, but the 40 lots in there, I used to work inside of that red square, which is why I chose that red rectangle over that. And we had so many cars that would fit in there. And I'm not saying it's ideal, but I think very often we think, the 12 lots on the right, it's equivalent land area. And there are these great studies that Urban 3, there's a group that does studies on, we have to pay for all the infrastructure. The Westchester Borough, right, pays for all the streets and different infrastructure. So where are the lots that are generating more tax revenue than they are, or let's say linear? Like, how do you measure what the services of the borough are giving? And one of them, right, at least we've got a bunch of them, but one of them would be the number of feet, let's say, of pipe for providing water for the house, but also for fire. For keeping up the streets, like that's a huge part of the burden of a Westchester. So then you can do studies on, okay, well, this lot kind of requires this many feet, both in frontage and then also to get there, versus others. And then they do these 3D diagrams where you see, hey, these are the lots that are providing more tax than they are taking away from the pool. And, you know, over and over, if you were to do that with this study, you'd find that, oh, that the area, you know, between minor and new, you know, are providing much more tax than they are taking away in at least some of these key pieces of infrastructure, where the developments on the right are definitely absorbing more than they're providing back. And so it's just something to be cognizant of when we're looking at the zoning and what we're pushing for, what areas of the town, which are usually non-conforming, meaning they don't follow the zoning code, they're actually the ones that are doing the lion's share of paying tax. Yeah, we are almost there, guys. And this is on the website, so you can go through it on your own if you feel like it. Basically, this was the end of that parking conversation, and this is the comp plan has these implementation plans as part of the comp plan, and so it had like, you know, where, like, how fast do we want to achieve these things? Because they had all these parking goals for a 3 to 5 year period, which we, you know, moved past, and so it's just good to look back and see, as we think about instituting a new comp plan, what were the goals for the old comp plan? What were the timeframes for that? And did they actually achieve those? And then maybe, you know, I don't know what the rest of the line is, maybe, but we can just use the old goals, or, you know, maybe we, you know, try to think about a better implementation plan. And then the last one, I'm not even gonna talk about this. We talked about it before. Okay, and then the true last one.
The true last one.
Jim had mentioned this last week, but it's obviously in the comp plan. It's something that we talk about all the time. Most of these wires are dead. This is somewhere on Minor Street. And it's just a shame. It would be great to just at least be the squeaky wheel on this one.
Great. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, I just wanted to make some, first of all, Tom, thank you very much. That was really, really cool. I wanted to get a little more to 50,000 foot view of the comprehensive plan. I sent something to Jim today, just like while we were talking here, which is the Pennsylvania planning module 1 comprehensive plans. And it basically breaks down who's responsible, what's going on, and how the comprehensive plan is going to be done. And this kind of gets back to a lot of what Tom's talking about. There's basically 3 things that the comprehensive plan is going to be doing. It's the community planning process, which will deal with assessment, visioning, citizen participation history of the community and regional characteristics of Philadelphia. So basically setting up and reaching out and building ownership of the plan, not only by the borough, but by the community, all of the stakeholders, individuals, business people, nonprofits, friends of the park, whatever park it is, everybody else that's out there. Second thing would be the physical, environmental, natural, and historic resources. Topography, natural resources, water resources, watershed inventory, resource inventory, analysis map, natural diversity, green infrastructure, and natural hazards. And then in inventory of historic features. Some of that we have already done, and we have these bits and pieces that are floating out in the world, you know, in the ether, and part of it is to bring them back in, collect them together, and have a set of information. And then the next thing are focus reports, which are basically dealing with things like transportation, housing, parking, economic conditions, land use plans, function and form of government you want to involve. In that booklet, it's really easy to read. It's just the overview of how the creation of the plan is supposed to go, what it's for, why it's there. The best pages I saw were pages 6 to 10. One of the things that I liked most was the implementable comprehensive. There's a book that I have that I'm going to get to Jim. And you want to get more pictures of it or more copies of it. And what it is
What was it called?
it's called the implementable comprehensive plan. I will get the full name and email that out to everybody. What it is there's a group of planners that are specialized in the comprehensive plans. They're out towards Western Pennsylvania, however they've done it all over Pennsylvania. It's 2 individuals. They did one for a city called, Jeanette. I don't know if anybody knows anything about Jeanette, most of my town. It was once a very big glass plant. Westmoreland Glass was there, a bunch of other things, glass made, collectible glass was made there, then everything dropped out. Pittsburgh steel mills, glass plants dropped out and it became a depressed city. They created a plan that has taken it from being one of the most depressed cities in the state to a really functional town, and moving up through every, and improving themselves, but keeping the characteristics of the community. So I will get you that book information. I sent this pamphlet so that you can read through it, try to understand the process behind the development of the comprehensive plan. Generally speaking, the way it was taught to me is your comprehensive plan is your satellite view of your town. You're looking down from the space station, looking at it, and then what it's meant to do is not only give you a grand view or a desire for what you want your town to be, but to start working through the zoning, some of the other ordinances that we have, to really drill down, generally speaking, come down into from your comprehensive plan down to your Parks and Rec plan, which would be about your 80,000 foot zoning, which would be about 20,000 foot view, down to your land development, which is your street. Is kind of the way is each one of those plans steps down more intensity or focus to a smaller and smaller and smaller portion. And this is a really great opportunity for you to have a real stamp on how this will look for the next 20, 30 years. Generally, when you're looking out, don't look at typicals. You create the plan generally. And you have a try to keep a vision of either 20 or 40 years. So that every 10 years you're reviewing to see how you are on track to 40 years or to 20 years. Generally, we should have a review at 5 years. And we should have something done like the guys last year, where it comes in and we got these things done, mostly stormwater management. This is the type of funding that support gives you a little bit of focus. Okay, how are we actually on the road to where we want to be? We're going to Cleveland, we can get there through Jacksonville, but it's much easier to go through Pittsburgh. A lot shorter and a lot less effort. So that's kind of what the idea is. So I just wanted to let you guys have that, have some more fuel.
Did you send that to us?
I sent it to Jim because my computer was not putting in anybody else's. And I put on the email saying, please distribute to everybody my emails back. Because it wasn't working for me because I don't have my keyboard. I can't confirm this. I'm asking him to forward that to everyone here. Okay, so that you guys have it.
Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just ask Aaron a question? So last week, we were asking the question, who is selecting the members of the committee? Who is selecting the consultant to help support it? Were you able to look into that and get us an answer?
The planning commission is generally the one that is supposed to be doing all that. They're going to be handling all of the overview.
I thought they're supposed to, but in this case, this is what we're
Not
doing.
got a solid answer from anyone, but without a solid answer, we are falling back on what the FTC states.
Okay.
But I will, as a matter of fact, tonight,
How long do you think this will take us to get answers to those questions?
to those questions,
Yeah.
I'll send it straight to Thomas Sesty and I'll get that from him. I went through some of the people in the office.
Okay,
So because I tend not to try to go directly to Tom, if I answer somewhere else, because it's less expensive, but, I'll go straight to Tom and ask him. I'll have that for you.
great.
I will have that
Just
for you.
next month, just,
I have it for you by the end of the week.
okay. Right.
It'll be an email, but I sent to Jim and everything, so I'll send it. I'm sorry.
Alan, since you had the floor, it's all yours. You want to take over?
Yeah, okay, so, begin with the chart, maybe, yeah. All right, so, I'll have to admit, I got a little confused as we were talking about looking for, big issues that we want to address in the new comp plan. To look at at the parking lot, as we look at our day-to-day, discussions as to how this all played out. And Jim was nice enough to indulge me in a long conversation about this. So I think I now have a grasp of it. And so what I've done is try to put all of the issues that have been raised by this group into a chart, because we want to make sure that everybody has a chance to provide their input in a way that's substantial. And I'll pass these out. I'll go through the parking lot. Still hate to call it tracking action on anticipated problems areas requiring planning commission attention is the new name for it. And so, all right, so
We just have to picture like the long, like.
No, we need an acronym. Planning actions requiring.
yes, action words.
Yeah.
You like a good action word. Okay, so you'll see at the top are the items that I believe have been raised with regard to input on the comp plan, that they fell under that umbrella. And at the bottom are the day-to-day issues that, no, I got one. Okay. Are the day-to-day issues that, I'm hoping that we begin to address again next time. I hope that Tom Estee could be here, could have done his homework, and that we kind of work on some of that. So I don't want to go through each one of these, but it was difficult. Some of these are kind of long explanations, and I had to just try to develop a 2 or 3 word expression that sort of identifies it. But I think we want everybody to go through the materials and all the presentations that have been done and just vote. What are your priorities? And on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, 1 being the lowest, and they can all be 10s, they can all be 1s. There's no grading on the curve here or anything. But so, and in doing this exercise, it sort of made me take a second look at, well, what action do I think is appropriate for this? So I was originally kind of ready to collapse on the whole golf course issue, because I did a little research on its, it makes public financial statements, so you're not blind to what's going on there financially, and it's doing okay, and so I was ready to drop it, but I think I'll just put it back into the comp plan. It's not something that requires urgent action today. It's more of a really thought-filled process, and a couple of local issues, local being across the street, are going to help maybe resolve or give us some direction on this. And so if that resolves itself while the comp plan is going on, we'll address it in a smarter direction. So hopefully these means something to you. I tried to do this. So what we're asking is to go back, a little homework, go back, look at these presentations again, write out, score these and get them back to, if you want me to send them to me. And then, because we can't all go in and talk to all everybody in borough management about how we're going to do this, but I think this will equip Jim with insight into
This is going to help consolidate and then prioritize. So
prioritize.
if everybody, again, the most important at 10, at the end of the day, we're able to just have your whole column filled out when we add all the numbers up and put an average together, we're gonna be able to understand what's the highest priority as a group, everyone has input on it. First, and understand that this is higher priority or more important to people to address, and maybe the ones that are less important, maybe they don't have the book like that, but at least they're still on this, we still want. But if you get them back to Alan, we can,
What is AB?
Well, I sort of feel like
Alan Burke.
Those are just initials of the PC members.
Yeah, but who's AB?
AB,
AB.
oh, AB.
I'm sorry,
On this one, what does AP stand
I think
for?
that's
Alan Burke.
No, not AB.
The last
AB.
Average. I'm gonna go
Average.
Okay.
What
do I win, Alan? Come on.
No, John, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
That's okay. If the pattern was members of the board, I'm saying, who's AB?
That's fair, that's a fair question.
And TL is parking lot. Any other, okay. So I honestly feel like I did go through this with the group, so I don't want to take everybody's time. I love talking about the parking lot. I'm more than happy to address this in real detail if that would be interesting to you, but I feel like I've whined about this enough and
I wonder if another thing, Alan, too, as we go through these and note importance is also who might be willing to shepherd it. Because I wonder if it needs a sponsor, you know, so if something gets to the top of the list, wow, but like, I wonder if maybe a really important thing to tie to it is like, I think this one's really important and I'm willing to put myself behind it. Push, that might be something to write down next to it as well. So we just see like which ones.
well, the fact that you brought it up. Attached to it.
And there's a lot of.
You made it.
Gives us a lead as to how to follow up
Sure.
on that excellent suggestion.
I think it's a
Tom.
great suggestion. The other thing I think, if while going through this, something comes to mind that you just haven't brought into a conversation, certainly feel willing to write that down.
Well, so I was gonna bring that up, because I think that needs to be on the list before we then go vote on it, because that'll be hanging out there. To me, any new issues that we want to add, I really encourage, because I also did a version of this
Oh,
over the last week or so.
well, I'm sure it's better than mine.
No, it's just not,
It's-
yeah, it's not in a nice table. It's just a list for discussion, but I was trying to look real quick, trying to cross check. And I just see a couple things that I would add to this, or at least bring up for consideration for
Okay.
adding, so that we can, as we're doing our homework, we don't come with a bunch of new ideas that are not voted on or reviewed by everybody. Because
Right.
we've already done this several months in a row where we had homework.
Yeah.
But we haven't done the homework, and so it's probably time, and I don't want to redo it again.
Well, let
That's
me
why.
ask you, if you have this list and your list, and if anybody else has any other things you'd like to throw towards Matt, if you can put one new list together and get it out. there.
Yeah, well, so I'm going to bring up a couple things that I saw right now, because I did try to do this while Alan was talking. First was the maximum building coverage. I didn't, and if it's on there, I missed it, but I didn't see that on Alan's list. And I think that's an important one, because I agree with Thomas's general position on that, and that we could
There was
probably.
something in here, I think. may
Strike that.
include that.
Well, it's about, well, maybe it's included in but I don't think so. So there's minimum lot space, there's setbacks, but there's not maximum building coverage, which I think is a fairly straightforward issue.
I like that one too, because I would get the check mark.
It feels like one we could like, yeah,
You know what I mean?
make a list so you
You
can
can,
drop it off.
definitely vary it into one of these other topics,
So,
so.
right. Well, and that's my general thought process on
Yeah,
this, is
exactly.
we need to break these into little
Right.
doable chunks.
Yep.
And wherever we can identify something like max building coverage, and we can actually hit that, then we should try. So that's one I would add to this list. The other one was, this was one I thought of, actually this week that we didn't discuss, and that was the height overlays. And do we need them anymore?
Right.
So I would bring that up as another issue that admittedly we haven't discussed at length, but other than discussing them during every recent Saldo review over the last 2 years, but another one that I would add to the list. And I think most everything else, I don't see, I think paving radius probably is that, clear sight distances, or am I missing that?
That sounds just great.
Okay, so I didn't, clear sight triangles there, no, it says at the bottom. Official map I saw for radii. That was, oh, and then we had brought up the, paint markings and stuff.
Mhm.
I didn't see that here.
Yeah, I think it was.
Is that?
Is that the removing of the, utility markings?
Yes.
Matt, I'd like to do my own version of what you're
Okay.
saying too. I can't look at anything for like 1 week. I can't do anything for a week.
Yeah, I understand.
But if if I could get it to you the following week, and it might be nothing, because I wouldn't at all be surprised if it's exactly like this, is exactly it. But if I could get you notes in like
Absolutely.
a week
So,
and a half,
that's-
right now.
That's contractor clear up,
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
cleanup, contractor cleanup, like what you're just referring to, getting rid of the white lines.
JC brought it up.
got it, there it is. Okay, great, perfect. So that's all. Yeah, so I think most of it's overlapped, so I would just add Max. But if we all collectively look at Alan's list and there's any issues that are missing or things that we haven't discussed yet, and you want to send them to me, I'll add them to the list and I'll redistribute in a week or 2 weeks or a
That'd be
week
great.
and a half.
And I would think as we, because I really like the importance thing, I would love it if we could also bring nuance as to like, what's the lowest hanging fruit?
Mhm.
You're talking about how you take the small bites, you know, like what are the small things that we can do to this? Because it could be that, you know, I'm looking at this, I'm like, I think it's so important to the residents that we tackle wires everywhere. There's no clear path forward right there. Or like, you know, so what are the ones that are gonna take the fewest amount of dollars, fewest amount of days to implement, or the easiest thing for us to make a vote on? And maybe we can also have that in mind, at least of like categorizing what these are, put it in these buckets.
Yeah, I mean, priority is going to mean something different to everybody. I agree, low hanging fruit, I think should be prioritized to the extent it can, even if it's not as critical as.
People look at lines as a priority, like you should prioritize.
Yeah, well, maybe we're-
But as you're doing that, let's be sorting out, to your point, but, and Alan's already done that, right?
Well, I just think just as a starting point, if Matt puts this together, so let's everyone gets this information over the next week or two. Prior to next month, we get that, we rate these things. We can then see where the priorities are, then at the work session, we
There
can
you go.
discuss
There you
which ones are gonna be,
Ease of implementation.
But this, the reason I was bringing it up is there's a group called Strongtown.
Yeah.
And one of the first things they talk about improving your town is identifying what is the easiest thing you can take care of. Because instead of, what's it, paralysis by analysis, do what you can, move forward to the next thing you can, and if constantly you're keeping up or taking care of what you can, or that are easiest to do, eventually you may keep change. You may not have moved it 9 degrees. You may have moved it 45 or 36 degrees. A heck of a lot better. Taking on this same time.
And one of the things I love about that approach too, is that when you're on probably the beginning of that path, you think you know what you want at the end of that path, but you probably don't until you start doing it. Probably as you're making these small incremental changes, you realize, oh, actually, this is a better approach, you know, it informs, you know, what that plan is.
Sounds like a plan.
I just want to say, that I think Matt's suggestions are really good ones.
and then
Like
you
your
go,
program.
that's an A+.
No, Alan, I assume you'll send me this electronic version of this.
No problem.
Just want to put this out there, if you guys need help or need information, you can reach out to me and let me know if there's something you need while you're working on individual projects or working on what you feel might be the priorities. I will do everything that I can to get done as quickly as I can. There are some times when I'm like, Thomas, give me a week. Because there's a lot of stuff going on, but if you do need something, by all means, reach out. Alan reached out to me before, Jim reached out to me before. And either myself or one of you.
Yeah, I'll accept stuff a week and a half from now, because I'll actually be in Colorado.
All right, very good. All right, well, I think that kind of wraps up CP E. We have no new business. Any comments from anybody?
Can I make a comment for Vanessa? There's some things I missed with the announcements. I do want to make an announcement that I did talk with Pete staff, and they will be turning in plans to begin a preliminary review for 410 South High Street. For the bird review plan, going off of what they had already come through sketch plans with. They are working some of the things up, just so you know, it is allowed by the MPC. I'm trying to talk louder, I want you can hear me. The MPC does allow multiple plans to be running through the planning commission at one time for one property. There was some question from them as to whether or not that was allowed. Understand, you can have multiple plans running through. At the end, you have to pick one. Have all at the same time.
We have had developers present two plans.
That was
Of
just
the
a
same
question.
property, at the same time.
There was something else I can show you. And that'll be enough.
Okay, Al? Quinty? Nope. Thank you for all the presentation on work.
No,
Anything to add? Well, we appreciate you coming. I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Please.
I got that one.
You know, the last one.
Okay.